Booster 11 scrapping continues at Massey's, Ship 26 sections arrive at the Scrapyard at Sanchez, Booster 15 moves to the centre work stand at the build site, and the flame trench is finally pumped dry of water at the launch site. Hey everyone and welcome back, I'm Jeff A and we'll talk about that and more today in episode 67 of our Starbase Flyover update, brought to you by RGV Aerial Photography. During this time, SpaceX crews have been super busy at all the sites across Starbase. These aerial photos were taken on the 21st of November. And with that, let's take a look around, starting at the Massey's test facility. Before we dive in, let's have a look at Proky's labelled map to get you oriented. It's been pretty quiet this week, but let's go have a look around. Firstly, at the Scrapyard, the scrapping of Booster 11's aft section is progressing well, with the thrust puck nearly removed from the dome. Moving on, at the new ring seen in a previous flyover, we can see additional lugs have been spotted, ready to be installed in the ring for the inner ring of 10 engines. At the structural test stand, similar lugs are being installed onto the ring for the outer 20 engines. These will act as connection points for the rams. And with that, onto Sanchez. First, we'll get our bearings with this labelled map. This site continues to be very busy, so let's check out all the changes. We see some progress with the new OLM structure, with all inner rings now fully connected. Temporary bracing has been installed in between the sections at the places where the wall is missing to keep them aligned for all the welding work. New parts, seemingly for the pancake top, are staged nearby. More steel beams arrived for the mystery supports near the horizontal tanks, and the assembled ones are getting placed on timbers, possibly for painting. At the GSE building, the LR11000 pointy end has been lifted to be moved. We'll see it later. Many of the pieces of plumbing seen out front have also been moved to the launch site. Closer to Highway 4, a new factory jig has been assembled, this one being different to the previous ones as it sits inside the stands rather than on top. More parts of these are staged ahead of assembly too. It looks like the Star Factory is still receiving a lot of equipment to ramp up the production rate. Rolling to the chopsticks area, some new marks might be for the shock absorbing pads like the current ones at Pad A. Possibly one of the last upgrades ahead of transport to the pad. At the QD arm area, crew appear to be line boring the mounting holes for the hinge bearings. A lot of GSE piping was loaded and transported to the launch site for installation into the culverts. Moving to the Scrapyard, Ship 26's engine section, midlock section and common dome moved here ahead of scrapping. Adding to that, after the flyover we saw the forward dome and payload sections moved here as well. Finally, at the rocket garden, guess what? More concrete work. This could be ahead of replacing the current concrete or for some electrical work that you can see on the storage pads. A ship transport stand has been lifted on top of the new legs that are bolted to the ground, most likely for fit checks. This system will allow the crew to simply pin the stand in place rather than having to use several bolts per leg to secure the transport stands to the pads. Now, let's move over to the build site. Beginning at Mega Bay 2 as usual, the door was once again closed, keeping us from seeing any progress, but Ship 33 remains in the back left, preparing for its static fire test. Ship 34 should still be on the turntable as the aft section could be welded with tiles added to the weld seam. Nearby in Mega Bay 1, things looked quiet, but there's plenty to cover. On November 19th, a booster load spreader was spotted entering the bay to move Booster 15 off the turntable to the centre booster workstation. The move was not witnessed live, but was confirmed on the 22nd. In this clip compiled by Vix from Lab Padry's Rover 1 camera, the aft section for Booster 16 would make a patriotic journey for integration with the LOX tank, currently stacked on the right turntable. The transport stand for the aft would appear coming out of the bay later that morning, indicating that it's on the left turntable. Over at the high bay, Ship 26 made its final trip from the rocket garden and is seen here cut nearly in half with only the nose cone, payload bay and forward dome sections remaining. At the writing of this episode, only the nose cone remained in the high bay. Last week, we shared a photo of the lineup of upcoming nose cones in production. This week, Starship Gazer was out and caught this image of a starboard forward flap aero cover being installed on the expected Ship 35 nose cone. With Ship 34 nearing completion with the turntable, it shouldn't be long before Ship 35 may start stacking. Moving to the back of the Star Factory, new concrete is seen along the perimeter near Mega Bay 2. Farther down, the edge of the retaining wall has been removed. Turning around, the 5 chiller units for the office building are now connected to the cooling loop. We missed a couple of weeks ago that this had begun and now have a view not obstructed by the temporary fence panels. Looking now to the office and Star Factory connector construction, the roof framing continued this week as the upper level wall cladding continued toward the office, allowing the roof to further progress. Roofers also continued to lay the insulation panels and the final membrane. If we look closely within the office, we can also see that the temporary walls were removed where they were installed to contain the air conditioning while the connector was completed. Along the factory side of the office, wide hallway spaces overlook the factory floor. If we look to the front of the office, the white cladding on the first level is completed, with the black facade above the windows now being put in place. Most of the HVAC units are also in place this week. A Liebherr LTM 1300 6.2 mobile crane with a luffing jib is seen being assembled in front of the building to place the remaining units staged nearby. As we move northeast of the office, palm trees are being planted in the holes previously thought to be footings for a structure. Construction on San Martin Boulevard continues on the roadway drainage, and across the road, new sidewalks are being formed, with drainage work on Meme Street also continuing. Trench and utility work also continues at the former crane yard site. It's still unclear what the space is planned to be. We'd like to take a moment and thank our supporters on Patreon, YouTube and X. Your support helps us make these weekly flyovers to capture all the changes. By joining, you also get access to full quality galleries and can join discussion with our same-day roundtable discussions after each flyover. Finally, let's go east to the launch site and see how things fared after Flight 6. Here's this week's labelled map to get you familiar with the site. Let's have a look at the changes and Launchpad A after Flight 6 of Starship Super Heavy. Starting at the flame trench, progress remains limited. Installation of the sheet pile tiebacks continues along the northern side. Toward the eastern exit, an area along the sheet piles is excavated with technicians working in the general area of where some tiebacks have been installed. They could be tensioning the anchors or just performing inspections. Along the tower foundation, a couple of smaller excavations have been dug around a few vertical pipes. Hoses leading to them appear to indicate these are sump basins being drained into frac tanks at the northwest end of the trench. The SpaceX LR11000 was still laid down during the flyover. However, the jib head section can be seen in the corner of this image being delivered back to the site. It would be installed on November 22nd, with the mast being raised vertical later that day. As rumoured in the days leading up to Flight 6, a new LR11000 was expected to arrive and is seen here with the chassis and superstructure already assembled, waiting for the boom pieces to arrive. Nearby, a new pad has been prepared for this crane to move onto. On November 22nd, the remaining parts of the crane would begin to arrive, with assembly of the derrick on November 23rd, followed by the main boom the next day. By the time you see this video, the main boom will likely be raised, waiting for its first lift. At the comms bunker, new utility trenching has started this week. 2 additional electrical vaults are in progress of being placed. The trench leading toward the south appears to suggest that this may be leading either to an area for Pad B pump hardware or perhaps the Deluge tank farm. At the middle of the site, work on the commodities trench for the tank farm continues. Interestingly, the pad doesn't head straight to the fluids bunker as suspected. The mound of dirt has returned, where the trucks are currently south of the excavation. The trench has been further dug out since the flyover, with a concrete pump placing a suspected rat slab for the next length of culvert on November 25th. Within the existing culvert, this week has seen the placement of smaller commodity pipes, and some of the vacuum-jacketed main supply pipes were also seen transported to the area. Plumbing work continues to connect the new subcoolers. The remaining pipe assemblies outside the Sanchez GSE building have been transported, with some already installed. To the right, we can also see some valve assemblies staged to be included here. In this clip from Lab Padre's Rover 2 cam, again thanks to Vix, one of the tanks, presumably from the port, was delivered to the launch site and lifted vertically into place on the ring embed we've discussed in recent updates. We'll skip the inactive tank farm this week and move directly for our first look at Pad A following Flight 6. We'll start at the top of Tower 1, where the antenna mast was seen leaning during Flight 6 is surrounded by scaffolding in preparation of repairs. The mast was brought upright soon after. Thanks to this image posted by Interstellar Gateway, they were able to see that during Flight 6, the door in the SQD may not have sealed properly and allowed for some flames, likely from residual propellants venting from the panel. Other views from the ground and air seem to indicate no significant damage to the SQD, so we'll have to watch for any further repair work. The chopsticks appear to be in good condition. While we noticed initial inspections soon after they returned to their resting position, there hasn't been much work on them. Back to the OLM, the usual assortment of work appears to be in progress. The scaffolding around the top of the launch ring is in place, as well as the ring on the dance floor for access to the hold down clamps and outer wrap to quick disconnects, and there's also the tower in front of the booster quick disconnect. This week has seen inspections and some minor refurbishment. We'll keep an eye on this as Booster 14 may arrive in the next couple of weeks if no major refurbishment is needed. Before finishing this week with some regulatory news, let's look at the launch site break room building. When it was being built, many commented on the design and inclusion of large windows as being at risk to damage during liftoff. While it survived well for several flights, Flight 6 would prove too many, as we see many of the windows were damaged during this latest flight. This week also included the FAA releasing a revised draft-tiered environmental assessment for the Boca Chica Starship operations. This was revised from the 2023 update that was temporarily put on hold earlier this year while the FAA investigated claims regarding the use of the Pad A deluge system, as well as evaluating updates to the landing area for the hot staging ring, sonic boom coverage, and US Coast Guard safety zones. One of the key elements of this revision is also a request to the increased cadence of launches, rising from 5 Super Heavy launches and landings to 25, with the possibility of up to 3 of them to be night launches. It's now subject to a 58-day public comment period before the FAA can release a determination of the revised plan. Further information was revealed through filings between NASA and the FAA that hint to a potential flight date for Flight 7. This filing indicates that NASA plans to use one of their Gulfstream 5 aircraft to image the ship re-entry over the Indian Ocean during the next flight. January 11th, 2025 is listed as the potential target for this attempt, so vehicle testing should be right around the corner if this target date holds true. That's it for episode 67 of Starbase Flyover Update. I'm sure you'll all agree it's been an amazing week at Starbase with plenty more to come. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV Aerial Photography. I hope you all enjoyed the flight, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on further updates as SpaceX progress further towards completion of Orbital Pad B. Please consider joining our Patreon to get early access to flyover galleries as well as participate in our show and tell discussions. I'm Jeff A, and we'll see you soon for another update on all things that are happening at Starbase, Texas from 10,500 feet.